Now, just to pre-frame all of this, it was all going through more how you handle difficult situations, mental toughness as well. And this is just going to be like inevitable factor when it comes to ads, of course. And it's 100% on how you respond to things going wrong that is going to decide whether you're successful with ads, with your business in general at all, right? Now, it's you have to like, of course, figure out what this means for you, but it's more about behavior change once something bad happens and once something affects your behavior, your daily life and how you actually act. So let me pull up a diagram from that video, which explains it like pretty perfectly. Now, there are four stages of behavior change, really. And that is after something bad happens, typically. And it's four things on how significantly how you act changes when something happens. So there's tolerance, fortitude, resilience, and adaptability. So tolerance is how many bad things or how long do bad things happen for before you, how many different bad things or how long does something bad have to happen before you break, essentially. So it's just a matter of how long is your fuse, sorry. How much can you tolerate before you change how you normally act? Now, if it takes a lot to change your behavior, then you technically have high tolerance. If it's the smallest things that get in your head that push you off course, then you have low tolerance. So if someone cuts you off in traffic and you get annoyed in traffic, then you technically have low tolerance, right? Someone says something mean to you or whatever it is, or then you have low tolerance. Now, you can see this in a lot of different ways, right? But you have to, of course, once again, be super, super mindful on how this applies to you as we'll go through this as well. Now, number two is fortitude. So fortitude is essentially how much your behavior changes when something passes your tolerance threshold. So how low did you go? Like how angry did it make you? How upset did you get? And what was the significance of that change? So let's say something bad happens and you take a breath, look at the data, analyze it, you wipe it off, and you get back to your normal behavior and you start problem solving, right? You technically have high fortitude. Now, let's say your ad account gets shut down and you start drinking heavy, you start smoking 10 packs a day, and then you start heavy recreational drugs, and then you decided to blow up your business and shut it down, then you have very low fortitude because that's like the worst situation possible. You're just like, I quit basically on every single thing that comes up, right? Now, that is super, super important to keep in mind whenever you have any sort of ad situation happen, because this is probably the biggest difference in emotional decision making with ads and problem solving with ads, so you can actually grow, right? Now, the next thing is going to be resilience, right? So after something bad happens, however much of a degree it changes your behavior, how long did it take for you to get back to your new baseline? So is it 5 minutes? Is it 5 hours? Is it 5 days? Is it 5 months, 5 years? Right? If it's 5 minutes and like, okay, something bad happens, your ads all tank and you realize like, okay, I just need to go fix them. It takes you 5 minutes to get together or like 2 minutes to get back to testing new ads, making new creative, and then making sure that you have like your system up and running, then technically you have high resilience, right? If your ads start tanking, you get pissy about it, you get pissed with your team, and you realize that none of it, you feel like none of the ads are working, and you get annoyed about it, and you turn off the ads, and then you take forever to test anything new, then technically you have low resilience, right? Because it takes too long for you to get back on track, right? Now, this is just something that's like, yeah, I would say the most important skill that you can possibly have. I mean, first of all, high resilience, but then low fortitude as well, because with ads, there's something that's bad that's going to happen every single time. Like it's impossible to just have a good run, right? Now, number four is adaptability, right? So how your new baseline compares to your old baseline. So are you worse off because of something bad happening? Are you the same or are you better than you were before? So like if you're worse off, let's say like just generalizing it here, if something makes you better, then you let something bad happening beat strength into you, not out of you. So you have high adaptability. So medium adaptability is you go back to how you were before, your exact baseline, you stabilize, bad things don't affect you. Low adaptability is you lost strength from the thing that's happening to you. So like just to like put this in psychology terms as well, anything that changes your new baseline is called trauma. So this is your adaptability. If it changes higher or lower, you're technically traumatized, right? Trauma, it's not like the word that everyone like makes it out to be. Traumatizing events is essentially your baseline getting better or worse. You can have it's just a permanent change in behavior from a bad thing, right? Both outcomes mean you've been traumatized, just so you know, you have permanent change in behavior. Now, what you want, of course, is to be learning, gathering data from something not working. And sorry, I just saw Sean's message. You want to gather data from something not working. You want to be learning. You want to use the data to make the next move very, very quickly. If you're not able to do that, then you will always have like a worse set of ads again and again and again, because like you just keep going downhill, right? So now remember, like bad things are a fact of life. It's just like how we choose to act based on something happening to us. And none of these are, of course, ones and zeros, you have it or you don't kind of thing. They're all skills. So meaning it matters more how good you are at these things. And if they're skills, they can be worked on, they can be improved, which means it's a volume thing as well. And when we confine ourselves into labels, I would say, then it becomes very, very difficult to detach from that. So you don't have to use labels to justify responses to behavior either. You're not like, I'm not a tech person, so none of this makes sense to me. I'm just going to blow this shit up because it's not my, it's just not my thing, right? Or I'm not good at managing teams, or I don't like managing, talking to people and this, not my thing. Like it's just not for me, right? That doesn't help anything, right? Because that just essentially is labeling yourself as low skilled at one of these four things, right? Again and again and again. And like if you, of course, once again, just like you would say, if someone tells themselves, I'm broke, I don't have money, this is expensive, this again and again and again to themselves, they basically speak it into reality, because regardless, their subconscious is programmed to think that they're broke. No one in the business space just tells themselves they're broke every single day when they're trying to be richer. Right? It's the same here with these as being skills. If you tell yourself that you are low tolerance or low fortitude, low resilience, low adaptability every single day, meaning you can tell yourself these things by the words that you say about your own business and about your own actions, by the way, consistently tell yourself these things, it doesn't really turn out great, right? So look, now real life examples, let's say someone's maxed out on mental toughness, right? They have high tolerance, so it takes a lot to shake them, and they have high resilience. So when something does happen, it doesn't affect them for that long, and they have high fortitude, so their behavior changes very, very little. And if the person just keeps improving and growing, so life happens for them, not to them, then they're in a great position to scale any situation, especially when it comes to ads, especially when it comes to any situation that's going to affect their business, right? Now, that is very, very important to keep in mind, because when anyone asks me, like the only thing, right, the first thing that everyone keeps saying is like, what's this person that's doing like 50K a month doing, 100K a month doing, 150K a month doing? They've worked on this enough. And that's like the only difference, because it's very, very rarely information and tactics. They just have, they're in a better position on all of these four things. And that is the difference between people doing 100 grand a month, 200 grand a month, because every single thing is, it comes back down to this. And I can pinpoint it in every single type of person as well as to which one it is that's going to absolutely tank their entire ad performance this month, next month, the month after. And that's going to tank one area of the business, second area of business, third area of the business, fourth area of the business. And you have to be super, super conscious on the stories you tell yourself about which one of these you are good at and bad at, and which ones like you need to improve on, because it's way too easy to dismiss all of this as being not that important, like just the strategies and the info being important. If it was just strategies and info, everyone will be rich. Like we already know this, right? If it was just strategies and info, then every single person will be able to apply every single thing, and everything will be working for them. But this is the bottleneck. Like this is 100% the bottleneck. So we just have to look at fixes, right? So if you have low tolerance, meaning like you have some small things happen and then it just throws you off course, and you tell yourself that something's not working, then you essentially need to stop giving power to something that changes your behavior. So when someone says something, or when one of your ads tank, whatever it is, and it upsets you, you just have to refuse to give it access to your mind to alter your behavior, essentially, right? So you can't look at a situation as being bigger than your own ability to handle that situation. So like that means that your own ability. You have to trust in your own ability, basically, for as long as possible to not let something bad happen alter your behavior. Now, if you have low fortitude, for example, so as soon as a behavior begins to change, like how much does it affect you? How deep does it affect you? You essentially have to identify as soon as your behavior beginning to change, you just have to very, very quickly ask yourself, like, is this about to snowball? Meaning, like, is this about to compound again and again and again by the things that you tell yourself? So remind yourself that you can only spiral downwards. So you don't make bad decisions. So you just don't want to keep making more bad decisions or falling further into negativity when something bad happens, right? So it's just about strength to not make bad decisions again and again continuously. Now, if you have low resilience, if you're down for a long time and it's hard to reverse kind of thing, you just have to basically identify, like, are you at rock bottom, right? If you've gotten to rock bottom, then the only way from there is up, right? Because there's nothing to lose from working on good things at the bottom, right? There's you only have work to do, right? And there's nothing to gain from feeling sorry for yourself as well. So it's like those two things are like super, super important to keep in mind, right? Remember, you have nothing to lose from working on yourself, and you have nothing to gain from feeling sorry for yourself. That's like, it's like it applies across every area of your life, and you can only tell yourself certain things to help you improve, and you can only tell yourself certain things to keep spiraling further downwards, right? So be very, very careful with the words you tell yourself, the words you tell your team, the words you say about your business, because those are all thoughts that you're feeding into reality. Like, if you keep telling yourself that, you will make it a reality, and you can't get out of a reality you've built in for yourself, right? And if you have low adaptability, for example, you don't feel like you're yourself again, or something bad happens. So you just have to ask yourself, what perspective do you need to shift to take only actions that help you improve yourself? So what were you doing before that you're not doing now? The easy question to ask yourself. What are you doing differently that doesn't serve you? How do you talk about yourself? Essentially, how do you talk about other people? How do you talk about daily tasks? It's more about doing things you did before, understanding and also understanding that there's a period of time where it will just be harder, and you just have to get enjoyment out of doing very, very difficult things that you know is uncomfortable, which is something that, like, of course, is not going to be like an overnight thing. It's just figuring out how you can get enjoyment from things going bad, first of all, and how you can get enjoyment from things improving. So that's my little motivational talk on basically the only thing that can essentially stop you from improving in your business as well, which is applicable to absolutely everyone, regardless of if it's a stage you're in right now or if it's something that hasn't come up just yet. Or if it's just general life, right? And usually, like, just from what I know and from what I've seen and from many years around people who have either highly invested in, like, psychology coaches, mindset coaches, and myself as well, heavily invested in that space as well. And then, of course, like, actual psychologists, because I was in med for a long time. What I've noticed is that, like, it's usually rarely just like a business problem. So you have to ask yourself, like, how are the behaviors that are taken from your personal life affecting your business? Because those four things, there's usually weaknesses in those areas in your personal life that usually carry into your business, whether it's relationships with people and friends, partners, family, whether it's with your team as well, like how easily do you let things seep into your behaviors around team, or whether it's with just habits. So, like, if habits that you usually had in your personal life that were positive fall and they start spiraling, that becomes a business problem very, very quickly, like a huge business problem. And I've seen it constantly again and again. And the people who I'll tell you now that that probably some of the best in the space, like, I'm of course excluding like Tony Robbins and all of this, where you have to pay like literally like hundreds of thousands for like an hour. They've all said the same thing, right? They've all said word for word the same thing. It's just like identifying which areas you need to improve in your personal life that will either keep you in alignment / in enjoyment for with the work, and more importantly, with doing difficult things, so you don't spiral out of control when something bad happens, basically. So that's just more of a assessment more than anything else as to, like, something to think about. Because yeah, once again, like we already know it from the outside kind of thing as to like it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. 90% of the time is how people are responding to things happening, right? And it's like regardless, it's just like how do you spiral a chain of improvement for yourself, which is what we want. Who was us? Who was your psychology coach? I'm not sure if I'm actually allowed to say because he went he stopped his consulting thing number one, and then he tried to keep it super quiet because of some reason with shutting down his business and this. But like can PM it to you, it's fine. But yeah, super knowledgeable guy because like it's a med thing in US, you have to have licenses and all of this. But all good. Sean, jump in. You had some stuff to go around as well with ad specifics.
Yeah. Before that though, guys, I've worked with Azri for a little bit now, and I will say he's just not that emotional. Like you could tell him that you made $1 million in a day, he'd be like, sound, like cheers. He would be like, nice. And you could bring him the worst possible news that the whole business is crashing and burning or whatever it is, and he would be like, LOL. I'd be like, ah, okay. So like for most of you guys, it's every little thing, right, can become very emotional for you. And I understand that because that's your income and stuff. But I would say becoming less emotional about the volatility is yeah, it's huge. Like exactly what um, as we just went through. But also when you have like huge emotional reactions, that can actually signal back to trauma, like actual trauma. So you would want to ask yourself when you're, let's say, having a bad moment in business, right? Why is it that you're so affected by it? And most times it's because of attachments that we have, either attachments or expectations that we have. Because if, let's say, the business isn't doing well, right? And let's say you do have money, you have your emergency fund, you're chill, but you just feel really affected by it, you're probably attached to it in some way, and you probably have expectations. And expectations, like really high expectations, are usually it's usually a sign of like lower self-worth from what I've seen. And expectations and standards are different, right? So standards is what you'll accept for the business. So you can have standards where you don't miss sales calls, you make sure that your sellers are on time, you make sure that your sellers are doing the work, you make sure that you're checking your ads every few days. That's a standard, but an expectation is that the business will never go through a hard time. Expectation is basically predicting that the future will always be good for the business. And most times, if like you have such high expectations, it's just that you are somehow attached to the outcome. So I would say study some detachment. Like there's a lot of stuff about it online. And yeah, just not be so emotionally attached to the business.
Agree completely because like you have to ask yourself like the biggest guys in the space that it's not like they're secure and have like at the beginning anyways when they actually started scaling heavy, and you have to look at when they were scaling, not where they are right now, right? When they started scaling aggressively, it's not like they had like a huge fund to back them up, right? They were literally, how did they make decisions where it was like you're fucked if this goes wrong, and like they're literally on the verge of losing absolutely everything if this goes wrong, right? So how are they able to make that and be okay with it, right? So it's usually they are less attached to what happens coming out of it and more attached to like the inputs and the work to make sure it works, right? And it's also like, are they okay with losing it all? And then what do they lose in terms of identity if they do lose it all? And it's usually status. So it's like, how attached are you to things, basically? Like, for example, if I crash both my cars and lose all of them, right? I would not care too much at all. Like it just doesn't, not because like it's not like a lot of money or whatever it is. It's just purely because like once again, what are you gonna do? Like cry about it? Okay, it's like just make more money. It's just it's the only thing you can do, right? So it's like what is the only other option? It's like it is the option feeling sorry for yourself. Is the option blaming someone else or blaming something else? Is the option blaming everything, right, all at once and then combining it? Or is it literally just focusing on the only actions you can take, which is going to be inputs to move you forward, right? So it's like, there's only a few options, right? And you only want to choose the one that's best for you before you start telling yourself the stories which are going to help you spiral downwards. But yeah, that's where like resilience, everything I just went through comes into play. Just identifying that. That's all, right. And then personal life, of course, that's like a long, long, long one, which I'm not going to go into. Maybe for a CEO call whatever another day. It's just like how you have to ideally structure your personal life and more expectations around people around you as well. That's best sets you up for like a happy life essentially, which of course is going to affect your business heavily. So yeah, that's it really. But Sean, like we wanted to go through tactical stuff as well, and I know I didn't see any questions in the chat just yet as well, so it's like can go straight into target.
Awesome.
I believe.
Yeah. Let me share screen. One sec. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Loading. Yes, we now can.
All right. Now, what I wanted to go through is how Facebook and Instagram targets your ads. Now, the reason why I think this is important is because it will also help with the mindset, because it will remove more emotionality by giving you guys an idea of what happens behind the scenes with your ads, right? One thing I get a lot is you guys will write an ad and I will green light it. I'll say, this is a good ad, it's a good hook, it's a good body, it's a good this. You launch the ad and it's just bringing in like the wrong type of leads, right? Or it's just bringing in the people that you don't actually want. And many times, not many times, but there's some times where it can be because of a reason outside of the ads and outside of the setting, right? And I want to go through this, especially for the guys running mainly like DM ads, follower ads, because this can happen a lot. So let's say your target audience is like US or UK, 30 to 50-year-olds, right? Let's say you're going broad with it. When you run an ad, what Instagram or Facebook will do is it will essentially pick a part of this market. So let's say it's this market, because let's say UK or US 30 to 50-year-olds, it's like a super huge market, by the way, it's super broad. And because of that, Facebook will select, or Instagram will select a small part of this market and it will target them, right? It will choose this market and it will show your ad to this segment of the market. Now, what is the number one objective of Instagram when you run a follower ad or any type of ad? It's to get you usually the cheapest cost per result. And if you're running follower ads, for example, it means it's the cheapest cost of visiting your profile. That means if it finds a market within this segment and it costs very little, or it's very cheap for someone to click on the ad, right? It costs 1 pence, or it costs 5 pence for someone to just click on the ad and visit your profile. Facebook is going to continue, or Instagram is going to continue expanding the same audience to people who look like these, because they want to get you a cheaper cost per profile visit, right? Or cheaper cost per follow. But sometimes those people that they're optimizing for are not actually the people who you want to buy, like who you want as customers, essentially, right? And one thing that we see sometimes especially with like the guys, is you guys will get followers who are like gay men. Again, nothing against that, but that's not the ideal audience that you're going for, right? But the thing is, the gay men, they don't see it as like, this is a fitness coach I want to work with. They just see like, hot guy, cheap to like, I just want to click, right? So Instagram sees that as, oh, perfect. These people are just clicking through all the time. So we're going to keep optimizing this ad towards that group of people. Now, what's the solution to this then? Right? This is the reason why we tell you test more creative, because another way that Instagram uses, another method that Instagram uses to target your ads is based on what you're saying in the ad, right? So if you're just saying, if you're just using the hook, right, as a really vague way of calling out a pain point, or if your hook is very vague in general, it can go to anyone, which is why if you improve how specific your hook is, the likelihood that your ad goes to the right people increases. And so the likelihood of you targeting the wrong people also decreases, meaning it's easier for you to basically target the right people. Doesn't mean that you won't target the wrong people sometimes, or it doesn't mean that Instagram's algorithm won't mess up sometimes. No, it will still happen, right? But when it does happen, your number one objective is to test more creative. Because let's say you have one ad here and it scales to a market that you don't actually want, right? What if instead of, my French, instead of bitching about it, right, we launch 10 different ads, right? It will start targeting other parts of the market. Yes, the spend goes up as well, I understand. But this is what I mean. If you start getting more ads, it's going to start showing those ads to different parts of the market, right? And if you make those ads specific, again, the likelihood of it reaching the right people goes up. And because of that, you now have a higher chance of finding the market and the people that you actually want to work with, right? So if you have created an ad, you think it's a good ad, I think it's a good ad, and you have a setting process that is dialed in, but for some reason, it's just not at the standard that you want, all you have to do is test more creative, right? I know I just blabbered on for a while, and this is kind of confusing, but all you have to do is test more creative, right? And I think Azri can share with you guys, he spoke to like a friend recently doing really well, like doing a lot of money, right? Like how many ads were they testing a day, Azri?
Yeah. Yeah. So like I just met up with a friend who PB'd last month. He's in e-com space, but he did $6.4 million in a single day. He did 13.5 mil that month, right? And it was like of course like super successful. He's been doing it for 14 years, but just a year older than me. But anyways, it's super successful going in the e-com space. They were testing they were creating 500 ads per day, like in terms of creation. So they have like a person who's literally creating statics all day, every day, and they have someone reviewing that and then someone doing the copy for that. They have 3 media buyers, right? Just looking and showing you what the team looks like for like a 9-figure company there. But anyway, in terms of media buying, from 3 media buyers and someone, they're just like insanely good. And then from that, with the copy done, with the actual creative done, they're testing about 50% of everything they make. So they're testing about 250 ads a day, right? Now, this is, of course, like very also for bigger launches. So it's not like throughout the entire month, but it takes volume, right? It takes volume of testing. And of course, like a lot of that comes down to statics at that point, of course, more scalable. And then there's going to be a lot of AI UGC, and they have UGC creators and all of this, multiple brand faces and all of this, right? Now, it's just more of a reference point. It's not that applicable to everyone here. But usually, the only reason why something can't work is just not enough creative. That's it. That's it. Like speed of testing creative. There's a lot I can say about that conversation, but like half is just not that applicable. But anyways, I do think the other thing here is like spend. All right. So if you spend, let's say you spent 100 quid, which you've scaled into a wrong market, right? That's not necessarily like 100 quid of wasted spend. It's just 100 quid to find out it doesn't work. So that means the only thing that you can do is spend another 100 quid to find out if you can scale to another market, and another 100 quid to find out if you can scale into another market. Within the same targeting options and all of this, I'll tell you now, the targeting options mean like fuck all right now. I'm not even joking. It's probably like 10%. These guys spending like, they spent 890,000 to make 6.4 million in that day, right? Most of their campaigns were broad, like literally broad, no interest, no lookalikes. Most of it, like 10-20% of their spend was on retargeting and some interest stacks and some lookalikes of customer lists and all of this, right? And funny enough, heavy email. But anyways, the main thing is like, remember, if you've spent like a few hundred quid into something, it's usually the speed of testing the next 100 and the next 100 for you to actually find the winner that you can spend 1,000 on and then another 1,500 before you switch out creative. So it's just about speed of spend, right? Now, I think more tactically as well is just going into how you can scale into a winning market fastest, which is not just so you know, I'm just pre-framing that as a question. It's just not a good question at all, by the way, because you don't know until, of course, you spend it to find out and collect the data. But everything that we do in terms of scripting is just to increase the likelihood that we scale into a winning market, not to guarantee it. Like it can be a perfect script and it can still go to a wrong market, just to be super clear, right? Now, number one, of course, is like how keyword rich the script is. And when I say keyword rich for the right audience who has the money. So one of the biggest things that you can do, and I think I made a video, I made a thing about this already, didn't I? On lead quality. So let me just share screen again so I can go through things that you can tactically do to make sure that you can more likely than not be profitable. By the way, if anyone wants a prettier image, ask ChatGPT to make that. Can send that over as a reminder, put it on, like stick it on your wall or something like that, just so you can consistently identify this as well for, and that was a YouTube video. But anyways, where were we? Lead quality, how you're more likely to scale into a winning markets. Sick. All right, I'll talk through it while before I'm writing it down because. All right, so number one, of course, is going to be the first 2 seconds. How to scale in. Actually, you know what? I'll go for it more tactically as if I was like, if I took over your ad accounts and if I took over all your ads, this is what we would pretty much do step by step. Number one, analyze previous performance. So if you've had winners, unless you're like starting brand new in terms of ads, the first thing that you do if you have a shit run of ads or whatever it is analyze previous performing winners, I should say, performing winners. So what went well, and you should be doing this every week, just so you know. Be very, very mindful. Like this, if you're not doing this regularly, you'll pretty much lose touch of what was working and what wasn't. When you're analyzing previous winners, there's a few things that you're looking for. So if I was taking over any of your accounts, this is literally the first thing I would probably do. And when I say analyze previous performing winners, take your date range. So let's say it's like, I would go for number one, PB month of new cash collected. And then number two, like, of course, like PB month of cost per lead, cost per follow, whatever it is, right? So when was this the lowest? If it aligns with this, then great. If not, then take both these months and then go into that date range. What ads were running and which ones were performing the best? If you have tracking behind specific ads from what people said on calls, or if you have tracking anywhere, then even better. Then I would transcribe all those winners with gettranscribe.ai, which is what everyone should be using anyways to transcribe research winners. And then from that, ask Claude / ChatGPT. I'd ask Claude to break down the structure of the winning video. And then I would like make heavy notes on structure of the visual, structure of the transcript, I should say, structure of the visuals. So that means that where was the text placed? Was there a text hook, meaning like in the first few seconds, was there something on the screen? Was there a text hook? How quick, how fast were the cuts into the second frame, what captions were you using, and how many words per line? Like essentially, if it's like 3 words per line and now something's like 1 or 2 lines per text, how many words per line? And then like where was the CTA placed? What was the CTA, of course, like, because if you have multiple CTAs, once again, keep in mind, a lot more difficult to work. And then you go into like the other stuff around location, what was the background, placing of the subject, meaning like, was your head in the upper third? Were you more zoomed out? Were you further away? What clothes were you wearing? So if you're wearing a tank top, does that work better shirtless or tank top or with a shirt on? And then what images were used in the video, and then what B-roll. So all of these things matter when you're looking at like a winner, because ideally when you're trying to make another winner, you remake the stuff that worked, of course, right? So this is what, and ideally when you have heavy notes on all of this, on every single one of your winners, you feed it back into Claude so it can make you, so when you're making new scripts and new transcripts or new scripts from the transcript, you can also ask for best positioning of all of this so you're not trying to figure out on the spot, right? So like, was it selfie style? Was it with a videographer? And how, actually one really big one I didn't put in here, like tonality. So how are you saying what you're saying? And how you say what you say? Make a note of this. Pacing, which like tonality, once again, goes into pacing, rhythm, volume of what you're saying, hand gestures, body, hand gestures, etc., body gestures, or like any movement, basically. All of that matters a lot, by the way, when it comes into ads. Now, when you have those, then you script about 10 more or from the winning transcript structure. And then that would be like your first batch of ads. Now, scripting 10 more, I can go quite heavy into, but then it's just going to be looking at like hook position and all of this, but we're assuming these were winners that have worked before. That's the first thing you do, right? Number one, keeping all of this in mind, right? Now, second thing you do, of course, is like improvements. Ooh. Improvements on close winners or whatever is like most likely to win based on research, etc. So in the hook, are you calling out ideal niche? Yes or no? Are you disqualifying people you don't want? That's an easy way to not get people who you don't want being pushed into the market. And are you using keywords which are scroll stopping, I should say? So like scroll stopping keywords, meaning stuff that you just ask ChatGPT or Claude for this, right? Are you using ideally data back stuff works well, data backs, evidence, research, numbers, all of these things, are you including those? Could do to make sure that you get a higher authority, well, you get positioned as a higher authority for this niche. And then next things are going to be around like it's when you talk about like scroll stopping stuff, sarcasm, humor, controversy, analogies, these things you can quite easy chat GPT lines and they almost always perform better, just so you know. Now, next thing is going to be the body, right? So body, like, can you get two CTAs in there, right? CTAs in, first, third, last at the end. If so, it usually performs better. And usually if like it's difficult to get a first, third CTA based on the script, then you typically want to do something that works in the CTA very subtly without being a direct CTA. So if you can't, use an indirect CTA. So indirect CTA is like, oh yeah, it's the stuff I talk about all the time on my page, right? Or it's just like worked into text. Oh, I've been doing this for like 10 years and, I've been sharing the info on my page forever now. And this is what I've learned. Or like we've had hundreds of clients that have done this, which I've shared on my page or in the link or whatever a CTA you're going for, right? So if you can work that into the first third, typically does better, right? Now, next thing on the body is like, especially if you're comparing to winners, how concise, how watchable is it, right? Have you checked retention graphs on the videos that worked? And then meaning like where was the drop off on your previous winners to improve or the stuff that didn't work that you need to improve? Go into the edits app, you can see where people dropped off were. If it's just straight on Ads Manager, you check the 25, 50, 75, 95% on the columns on Ads Manager as well. And then like, can you cut that part out or change to make it better? I mean, more watchable, more retainable, and then you get a better performing video in general, right? And then next thing is like, is what you're making is what you're making scripting validated? All right. Is it based on validated structure, validated off of other winners, other people's winners, from other people, others as winners? Or is it just something you're making up for the sake of making it up? Which is fine, by the way, which is just unique scripting. If you're just making it up for the sake of testing it for a specific messaging position, then you just want to make sure you're following all the rules, basically. Or once again, you're just throwing stuff into the air, hoping it works. And then next, it's just going to be like, is it rich in caption keyword text? So like, if you look at the caption of the video, remember, like I went through this the other day as well, but Meta looks at, of course, the transcript of the video, what's in the video, and then what's in the caption, so it knows who to push it out to, right? So do you have enough keywords? Do you have enough keywords to? Oh, one sec. Enough keywords to include ideal niche and exclude brokies, basically, right? So people who can't buy your thing. Now, if you do, then great. If not, then it's probably something that's going to help your targeting to scale into a winning market quicker. Like, and this is more of like a general thing. When you're going for people that pay you more money and what you want people that pay you more money, there's like just a general rule, and it's a general rule for pretty much anyone that's everyone's knows. whoever is willing to spend the most will win. So will win. And meaning, like when I say whoever is willing to spend the most, take Superhuman, for example. Right. Superhuman is pretty much everyone knows them. John Madsen's guys, they're doing 5 million a month in online fitness coaching. They're the ones that target out specifically people who make 150K a month or more, a year or more, sorry. So they're just going for all their messaging is down to like calling out people who make 150K or a year more, right? John Madsen was like, we very, very much understood this, and we were just like, okay, how can we just pay as much as we can to acquire them on the front end and then upsell as many of them on the back end as possible? So they just up their price. They went from 5K offer to 10K offer, right? And now at 5 million a month, their cost per acquisition to the cost, how much they pay to get a client that on a 10K offer right now is $6,000. So like they're purely just willing to pay more for acquiring the same customers that everyone else is going for to try and charge them like $5K or $5 to $3,000, right? John Madsen's guys will pay more than pretty much anyone to acquire the exact same person. So it is just a game of whoever is willing to spend the most will win. So what you have to do is look at like, how can you make more money on the back end from the same lead? So this is like golden rule of advertising, by the way, from the same lead. So what they did when they scaled from like 100K a month to $1 million a month, one of the biggest things they did, of course, they increased the price on the front end, but the biggest thing they did is instead of having like a recurring back end for all their clients, which was like 1K a month or 500 a month or something like that, they made it 5K and then they made it 40K. So they just had like a 40K back end offer for all of their clients, right? And that was it. So this is online fitness, by the way, and it's the exact same thing that everyone does, right? So they were able to liquidate heavily on whatever front end cost they were coming in, having to basically be very, very profitable. Now, next thing is like next thing specific about John Madsen's guys as well, and John Madsen himself, he was said like he's specifically himself able to only make enough creative to spend 25K per day, so like 750K a month. So one person is filming all the videos, all the creative for 750K a month worth of spend without any other brand faces, without any other people before they split into women. So they were like only doing women all the way up until like only doing men, sorry, up until 2-3 million a month. And then they split into women. So it was like, in terms of niche, they were just, they were just like very, very dialed in until they had to expand. And then from there, it was like multiple brand faces because it's women and all of this. So you just have to ask yourself, like, are we making enough creative to be able to spend what we want to for us to be able to outspend everyone else? And then all of this is just the consistent things that need to be done pretty much every day. For example, John Madsen's scripting all his ads as well. Like, I don't know exactly how many, but it must be in the hundreds and hundreds that they're testing per month in terms of ads, right? So if you've tested like 5-10 ads and then some stuff hasn't worked, just for reference, everyone who's spending more has probably tested that in the last 6 hours. So it's like if that's like the database that we're going off of, we just need to go a lot heavier in terms of scripting and filming. That's all. Jump in, Sean.
And I feel like there's a misconception with ads where people don't understand what makes an ad work or what you have to focus on when you're running ads, because in any other method of acquiring customers, there's active work. So if you do outreach, right, for example, you have to do the work of sending the outreach. If you do content or you build like brand, you're going to have to do the work of posting every day, multiple times a day, posting on your stories. Any other form of acquisition, there's active work to it, and ads are not an exception, right? Ads are not the only thing where you put in 3 ads and you put some money behind it and it just takes off, right? It rarely does that happen. Most times, the work when it comes to ads is figuring out how to spend more, right? And how to spend more is it's through spending more on winners, and if you don't have winners, it's spending more on testing more creative. And so those are the main 2 things that you're trying to work on with ads. And as long as you can do that, then you will find a winner eventually, right? The second thing I wanted to cover was with the last rule that Azri shared, that whoever wins is the person who wins is whoever is willing to spend the most. Keep that in mind as well as you're working on the niche, or let's say as you're working within your market, right? Because if you're working in a market where you want to go for people with higher sophistication, people with higher incomes, right? So if you want to go for people who make over 100,000 a year or 150,000 a year, you have to realize that overall, on average, the market is just willing to spend more money to acquire those guys, right? So you have to also expect a higher cost per follow, a higher cost per lead, all those metrics to also go up, relative to the cost, relative to the other types of niches and markets, for example, right? So if you're in the market of selling to 20, 30-year-olds, right, the cost per lead might be really cheap because no one's really going for those guys, right? But you're not going to get the best leads. But if you want to go for older people with careers, who are professionals, things of that sort, just be ready to spend a slightly higher amount for a lead, essentially, right? But that being said, that doesn't mean you have to get out the gate and spend 20 grand a month just to build a business. No, it doesn't mean that. It does mean that you have to improve the quality of your ad, because someone can spend a lot of money on an ad, but they have a shit ad, they won't win. But if you're able to make an ad that calls out to that specific person, it's a good ad visually, like based on tonality, based on everything in the ad, you can win someone who's spending more than you, right? So if you focus on that, that will be your competitive advantage to build your business, essentially.
So work off of data points. It's the same thing when we say like every single time. And like I still think like some of you guys are like heavily underusing AI to actually ask what the problem is. Like if you literally just take a screenshot of your ad data and put it into Claude, some of the stuff's like very, very obvious. It requires like zero decision making skills whatsoever to just be like, this is like very, very obvious. This is the problem kind of thing, right? And it's just then how often do you abuse that basically? So like, can you go deeper and deeper into data and then your ad scripts and then winners? For example, if you're like, okay, I have like 5 ads to test and this and this and this, which one would it be? Put the 5 transcripts in there and put your winners in there and find out. Like you'll probably find out what's best and you can probably improve it. If you've got like a bunch of ad data over the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, like literally just screenshot and put it into Claude, ChatGPT, whatever it is, you'll get like a fair bit further than trying to like confuse yourself over what's just gone on, because then at least you'll have like a baseline idea of what has actually happened. Now, of course, like, is it going to be 100% accurate? Absolutely not. But it's usually better than like feeling confused about it. And that's the main thing. It's more like the feeling of being confused on what's next rather than just actually not knowing what to do. And then another thing is like one of the biggest, I think, bottlenecks, hurdles kind of things, it usually comes down to lack of data. So it's like, do you have all the data points and have you tracked it for you to know what's working and what's not and how to test? Because if you don't, when you're not fully aware of it, then no one's going to be able to tell you really. Like it's just going to be a guessing game at that point. So like the biggest points of confusion / worry, stress about anything going on is almost always like lack of data or consistency of data collecting, and then how accurate, of course, that is, and then how often you review and iterate on it. Like if let's say you have 100% of the data and you haven't looked at it in a week, it's like absolutely useless. Like you can track every single point, it's just absolutely useless because it's just like mental masturbation basically around having the data tracked, right? If you don't review, iterate, and complete, like actually make changes on it, then like it's just once again going to be a long stalling process. So actionable stuff that you should be doing, and so it's like actually blocking out 30 minutes, 40 minutes to, of course, make sure all the data that you need is tracked, and then second, make sure it's accurate, and then third, notes on what your findings from the data actually are. So if we don't have like a 30, 45-minute block to review notes on your findings, then it's almost always going to be your most valuable slot straight away, right? Because once again, if anyone came to you on like pretty much anything that you're, for example, an expert on, and they had like zero data tracked and zero idea on what's going on with the data, like, yes, you can find out and yes, you can dive into it, but like how consistently that can be done or how consistently that's needed to be done to make any significant change on progress is the deciding factor of how useful it is, right? So the biggest leverage point that you can possibly have is to be able to do that consistently and review it yourself, and of course make notes on it, just like journaling or whatever, like reviewing your day. The best media buyers pretty much all have like a ton of that I know anyways, they have like a ton of notes on every single ad, every single creative, every single action that they took in that day for their ads, so they can backtrack what actions worked and what actions didn't. For example, if they scaled the spend by like 15, 20 quid, and they it's usually not 15, 20 quid, but like let's say if they scale the spend by a certain amount, and they were like, okay, I am doing this for this reason, making a note of it because I've seen this work on this, then they all have like notes on day by day exactly what they're doing and why. And then they all can backtrack like what changes they can see across the days as well on what they're seeing come out of it, right? And remember, you have to be the best media buyer to be the best business owner at this stage until you don't have to be, right? So like pretty much everything up until a certain point, like media buying, or like when I say media buying, like just running ads or knowing how to run ads properly is like your highest leverage play. And every single big company, their founder, like, and we're talking about the biggest companies as like technically they're the examples that we should be looking up to as well, because they've taken it the furthest, meaning they've already gone through all the stages of all the BS that everyone like cries about for like years and years, and like, okay, I'm stuck at like 10, 20, 50, 100K a month, 200, 500K a month. They've already been through the stage of crying about that, right? So technically they're the best of the best, right? So they are like every single one of them that have scaled to the highest numbers, meaning 3-5 million plus a month. They all, number one, got there with ads, right? And they all got to their first 100K months or 200K months with just ads, and next to like no organic, by the way. And we're talking about the biggest guys, meaning that they got good at ads as the first thing and the best thing that they got good at, and on top of course sales. And then second, they 100% were able to understand the LTV CAC ratio on pretty much everything. So they were able to understand how much they need to spend to have a client that pays you this much across a certain period of time. So it's like nearly none of them cared too much about how much they were making on the front end. They were purely like, how much does this person pay me in total? And then like, I'm just going to ram it until like it becomes unprofitable on that side, because then they fix something, and then once again they have like hundreds of thousands in profits out of nowhere, right? Because honestly, it's a business that can produce that kind of volume. Now, it's more important that you kind of behave like this now as well, because it's you'll go into heavy stalling periods without, I mean, like you'll second guess pretty much everything until it becomes very difficult to make any bigger actions after. And then it's just like a usual trend downwards when you're very slow or get comfortable around making certain actions. And you don't take any aggressive action at all. And then trying to maintain something is accepting that you're going to decline. Like if you try and maintain something at a certain month, that's just accepting a downfall basically, because like once again, ads don't perform at all times. Everything is just going to essentially at some point not going to work, and then you have to climb back up, and then it's just like aggressive climb back up, which is more difficult. So always just keep going for like the aggressive next move. And usually it's going to be the two things that we talked about today. It's going to be spend and creative testing, and then your mental frame around how you handle that as well. So hope that was helpful as well. Thank you guys for jumping on. And yeah, no, we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Azri. Brilliant call. See you, team.
Bye. Bye.